Have you ever felt like you and your partner are on completely different planets when it comes to love? Like you're speaking two different languages? It's one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, sometimes confusing parts of being human. Well, what if I told you that a lot of that confusion comes from a single, simple fact? We're often working from two totally different instruction manuals for how love is supposed to work.
So let's just dive right in with a question that gets to the very heart of this. It's a question that feels so personal, yet almost everyone, everywhere has wondered about it. Can someone feel you missing them from far away? Now, whether you think that's possible or not, just asking it, well, that opens up a huge conversation about what connection even means.
And yeah, that question, that's our jumping off point. It's not just some random thought. It's a truly universal question that exposes this fundamental tension in how we think about our connections to the people we care about the most.
Because, you see, a question like that immediately splits people into two camps. On one hand, you've got the scientific view, right? Which says, look, there's just no known physical way to, beam your feelings across a distance. But on the other hand, you have thousands of years of spiritual and intuitive belief that talks about energetic links, a kind of connection that just works beyond our five senses.
But look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. It gets at a very real problem. What happens when a deep, profound love, one that feels spiritual, that feels almost magical, has to exist in a world that seems to run on a completely different set of rules? And that's where the real conflict, and our story today, really kicks off.
And misleads us to the absolute core idea of this explainer: love's two dimensions. So much of our confusion, so much of our heartbreak really boils down to one single problem. We are trying to navigate our relationships using two completely different frameworks, basically two conflicting sets of instructions. So let's just call them what they are: the two operating manuals for love. The first one is what we'll call the spiritual ideal, and the second is the relationship practice. Now here's the thing, and this is so important to get: both of these manuals are valid, but wow, are they often in direct conflict with each other.
So first up, the spiritual ideal. This is the manual of poets, of mystics. It's the big picture stuff. It's about transcendence, about seeing love as this eternal, unchanging force that just connects two souls. The ultimate goal here isn't just to be partners, it's total unity, a kind of selfless dedication where two people truly become one. Okay, now let's flip the coin and look at the other manual, the relationship practice. This one is way more grounded. It's all about action. It's about effort. From this point of view, love isn't some mystical force you just feel. It's something you actively build and maintain. It's about mutual work, understanding, and all those practical things, like giving gifts or just making time for each other.
And believe it or not, this whole idea isn't new at all. It's got deep roots in philosophy. I mean, the ancient Greeks had different words for love that map almost perfectly onto these two manuals. You've got eros, that passionate spiritual fire, and agape, that unconditional, selfless love. That's pure spiritual ideal. And then you have philia, which is like deep friendship, and pragma, that practical, committed love. That's the relationship practice right there.
So what happens when you've got two people in a relationship trying to build something real together, but they're reading from two completely different playbooks? Well, that's exactly when worlds collide.
One of the sources we looked at for this explainer just put it perfectly. It said, "You fell in love holding two different operating manuals for what it means to keep a relationship going." Man, that one sentence can explain so much of the misunderstanding and heartbreak people go through. And when a relationship is running only on that relationship practice manual, it can become incredibly fragile. You can almost see how it plays out, right? At first, everything's amazing. The excitement is high, everyone's putting in the effort, and expectations are met. But then, well, life happens. Stress from work, family stuff, the effort naturally dips a bit. And when it does, it's not seen as just a normal part of life. No, it's interpreted as a total failure of love itself.
So what's the biggest roadblock? What stops us from bridging these two manuals and finding something deeper? Well, it really seems to boil down to two things: ego and selfishness. The second a relationship becomes about what am I getting out of this, it just creates this wall, making it almost impossible to tap into that deeper, more resilient, spiritual side of love. But hang on, that's only half the story. That's just one manual. What about the other one? This brings us to the absolutely profound power of unconditional love, a kind of love that can actually thrive even when it's not being returned.
This is what's known as devotional love. And it's a form of love that becomes completely independent of what the other person does, or even if they're there at all.
It stops being about the back and forth of a relationship. It literally transforms into this self-sustaining internal state of being.
And if you think this is just some fleeting romantic feeling, get this. In one really powerful account we read, an individual noted that this kind of selfless devotional love had only grown stronger for more than 30 months after the relationship was over. That's not a temporary emotion. That is a deep internal shift.
And this reveals a pretty incredible truth. True spiritual love doesn't just die when a relationship ends. It can't, because its source is no longer the other person. Instead, it transforms. It becomes this internal wellspring of strength and devotion.
Now I know, this might all be starting to sound impossibly abstract. But what if there was an ancient blueprint for how to perfectly bring these two conflicting manuals together? Well, our final section explores just that, a mythological blueprint for love.
And this blueprint comes to us from the incredible story of the Hindu deities Shiva and Parvati. Think of it this way. Shiva represents pure consciousness. He's the stillness, the being, the spiritual ideal. Parvati, on the other hand, is divine energy. She's the action, the effort, the doing. She's the relationship practice.
And what's so amazing about their story is that their union isn't about compromise. It's about completion. They are two essential halves of a perfect whole. The mythology teaches us that consciousness, that's Shiva, actually needs energy, that's Parvati, in order to create anything at all.
And the ultimate symbol of this perfect integration is a form known as Ardhanarishwara. It's this divine image where Shiva and Parvati are depicted as one single body, half male, half female. It's the most perfect visual metaphor for two becoming one, showing that the spiritual ideal and the daily practice aren't separate things. They're two sides of the same divine whole.
And so, this ancient, beautiful story leaves us with a really big and very modern question. If the most complete, the most resilient form of love requires both that eternal, spiritual ideal and the committed daily practice, which one are you neglecting? And which one are we, as a culture, in danger of forgetting altogether?